Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today I'm coming to you with another review, and that is a review of the book Genuine Fakes, How Phony Things Teach Us About Real Stuff by Lydia Pyne. I was given this book as an ARC from NetGalley by Bloomsbury Sigma. This book came out on October 29th, so you can pick it up in bookstores today. So this book is about genuine fakes. And genuine fakes are basically fakes that they're considered real enough that when we see them, we don't go, oh my gosh, that's a fake. Like, why is this here? Get this out. I don't want to see this anymore. They're fakes that, even though they are fake, that we consider them to be real in their own right. So for example, the author goes through many different scenarios and looks at these particular fakes, things that are fake, but why we consider them to have value, even though they are not necessarily the real thing. So, for example, she talks about the Spanish forger who forged a lot of medieval art. And while today we recognize them as forgeries, they have become collector's items in their own right. She looks at artificial flavors, nature documentaries, and live streams of nature, replicas of caves that have been built to preserve the art in the actual cave, in the real cave. Replicas of blue whales in museums was one. There was this huge fossil scandal that happened that was actually kind of funny. Natural diamonds versus real diamonds. And basically she looks at, in each one of these cases, gives you a really interesting story about how the fake came to be, or how we came to recognize these things as fakes, and why we look at these things and aren't grossed out by them or consider them to be like the worst thing ever because they're fake. Why is your reaction to one fake, for example, if I came and gave you, I don't know, if I gave you a book and said it was mine, and then you find out later that it was actually written by someone else, you would be like, what is this? I've been deceived, right? But why are these fakes, on the other hand, considered valuable? And there are different reasons for that. And so some of the conclusions she comes to is that sometimes it's the story surrounding the object, right? So like for the Spanish forger, the story of the fact that some guy was sitting in Paris, probably at some point, selling these pieces to people, and that for years they were considered real, and now that we're finding out that they're fake. That story behind it gives that object a value of its own. And so even though it's a fake piece of art, it's not the real medieval art, people are willing to buy it because of the story or the provenance that is with that particular piece. For example, in the case of diamonds, sometimes the fake is actually more ethical than the real thing. So for example, like with natural diamonds, a lot of them come from places where people worked in very terrible conditions, but you can make it a diamond in the lab, and it's way more ethical than buying one of those diamonds that comes out of the earth. And then of course you can argue about, is a natural diamond really real? Is the diamond in the lab realer than the natural diamond, if it hasn't been in the ground for like thousands of years to make it? But it could be more ethical. It could be for educational purposes, like the blue whale in like replicas of blue whales in museums. At one time, people were actually getting like literal the blue whale's carcasses, and they're trying to preserve it as they took it around, like the country on railway cars. Is that more real than the replica that museums, say in the American Museum of Natural History, makes? And no one looks at the blue whale in the Museum of Natural History and goes, that's fake. We look at that and we know that for educational purposes, that even though it's not like the actual whale carcass, that it is as close as you can get to having a blue whale in a museum. And same thing with the cave art she talks about. There's this cave found in France where the art was like from thousands of years ago, like prehistoric cave art. And they closed it off to the public because they had another cave just like it. And over time, just from people walking in and out of it, it changed the environment in the cave and started to mess up the cave. So they said, we're closing this off to the public, but we'll build a replica of it so that you can still view the art in almost the same circumstances. And people don't look at the replica of the cave and go, oh my goodness, this is fake. This compares nothing to the real thing. I'm not going to look at it. I want to see the real thing. We say, okay, I know that this is a replica of it, but because it's as close as you can get to like the real thing within cost and budget constraints and stuff like that, it's acceptable. So basically she goes through all these different scenarios, and you see why, for the intent too is a very important thing. If something is made to purposely deceive you, then we'll just throw those things away. But or say like, oh, that's to fake it out here. But if it has some good intention to it, for example, like the diamonds or the cave or the blue well in the museum, then we tend to give those genuine fakes, and we will accept them. So I thought that this was a good book. The stories for each of the objects that she talks about in the book are just great. They're very interesting stories behind each of the objects she talks about. She said as she was writing the book that she had to kind of filter out which one she wanted, which one she didn't, because people come to her and say, hey, I found this really great like item that has this really cool story behind why it's fake and stuff like that. But so I think it'd be really interested if you're like interested in like natural history, art history, because a lot of these objects come from natural history world, some are like archaeology, paintings and stuff. If you like that, if you like history, I think you really like this book, because it's such really well written and very interesting. So if I had to give it a stars rating, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that is it for this review. If you, let's see, do I have a question that I want to ask? Well, I guess, is there like something fake that you saw out in the world that really caught your attention? I don't know, would it be a painting or like a replica of something that you thought was really good and almost non-distinguishable from the fake, from the real thing? Let me know down in the comment section below, and also how I did on this review. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at GhostReads28 and also on Instagram at JustinTheGhostReader, and Goodreads. The link to that is down in the description box below. So as always, keep reading.